What is up, disc golfers? Before we talk about Paul McBeth's footwork today, I want to give a quick shout out to the Iceberg Disc Golf Backpack Kickstarter. We've seen a ton of support from you guys already. We're pretty much just about halfway to our goal, and I cannot be more excited. This disc golf bag has been designed to optimize your performance from the ground up. Each dimension, each pocket, all the way down to this awesome chair holster here has been designed for your comfort and your performance. If you want to support the Iceberg Disc Golf Backpack, the link is in the description below. This is 2 years in the making, and I cannot be more excited for this project. So Paul McBeth's footwork, I think, is actually the best in disc golf. I don't think anyone has footwork nailed down quite as tightly as Paul McBeth does. I think a lot of the common things we see from players is having a very similar run-up regardless of the shot they're throwing, and the only thing that really changes is sort of the angle at which they'll attack the tee box. Players will typically walk more to the left when they're throwing more Anhyzer, walk more straight or to the right when they're throwing hyzer. And this is a really good thing to practice, but I think Paul takes that to the next level. And I want to show you guys some of the things that I've noticed that I'm going to try and implement into my game, because these are things that Paul does that not a lot of other players do. The first one I'm going to show you is probably my favorite one. It's the one where Paul really needs to hit a tight gap, and he's going to slow the form down and actually basically keep his chest. Pay attention to where his chest is in relation to the target. And this takes a lot of athleticism and a lot of repetitions. And this isn't something that you can just go do. This is something that you have to practice. But once you nail it, you can consistently hit gaps because you're able to keep your eyes more on the gap. You don't really have to take your head off the gap. And we're going to let Paul demonstrate what I'm talking about here. This was very unique to Paul, and I don't think a lot of players do this, and I think a lot more players should do this. He really keeps his chest sort of on the target here. We're going to slow it down one more time. Most players are going to bring this chest facing more to the left, but Paul actually keeps it facing basically directly at the target. He's able to keep his chest and his head. He's locked. You can see his head here. He's basically at the most bent over position here, and his eyes are still on this gap. And I think this is something that takes a lot of athleticism. It requires you to be very focused during the shot, but it's also going to make it a lot easier to hit this gap because he doesn't have to take his eyes off of it. A lot of other players in the same gap are taking their eyes off the target so they can get the full amount of, turn required to throw. But Paul can keep it really compact. His eyes only come away from the target for a split second, and he's able to go straight up the gap here and throw a perfect shot. The next shot that I want to talk about here is going to be throwing Anhyzers and rollers. I think this is something that we saw a lot more of Paul earlier on. We don't see it as much anymore. But what I want you to pay attention to is the step he takes right before he throws. You're going to see this right foot basically come all the way to the front left corner of the tee pad. And this is actually going to help him pick his chest up super high and almost leaning backwards to lay down this roller at the European Open. Right there, you can see this final step here that goes into this roller. Really pay attention to this right leg. He's really stepping forward basically, and that's going to help him get that roller down. Even with really overstable disc, he can lay those rollers down because of, if you can see the way that when that foot steps forward, he's able to lean back. And that's really going to put him in a position where that roller is going to become a lot more natural, but it all starts with the footwork. So we really need to be paying attention to our feet and our legs and our lower body when we're really trying to choose the angle of the shot that we're throwing. We're going to look at this one more time because you can see it looks very normal, and then boom, right here. He's really opening up the hips here and stepping really far forward. Boom. And I absolutely love this shot. Again, when you have footwork like that, it's going to make it a lot easier to get the roller, down and down quickly because your body's going to be in the right position to just lay that thing down immediately. This one was from Spin TV. The last one was from Jomez. Now this is what Paul looks like when he throws more of a power shot. This video was in Finland. Shout out to Timo for putting this on YouTube. Should upload more videos. It's got 70,000 views. Could have a really good channel. You can see this is going to be a lot more conventional than the type of run-up you see from most players in the Pro Tour, especially players like James Conrad, Ricky Wysocki. A lot of those guys bring a lot of speed into their run-up, but Paul doesn't really need all that speed unless he's throwing like 550, 600 feet. You can really see the speed and intensity that he's running up with. You don't see that from Paul very often, but when it is a really far shot, this is a run-up that's really important. And this is the most common run-up that you see from most of the players on tour, and they use a run-up like this most of the time. Paul separates himself basically by having all those different kinds of run-ups, so he can hit discs with different power on different angles. He uses different tempos, and this is the fastest of the tempos that you'll see out of Paul, is something like this. We also saw a lot more faster tempo shots like this out of a younger Paul who hasn't quite mastered all the other different types of footwork that we see from him in today's game. The last one that I'm going to go over, this is that big uphill hole at D-Glow. I really love this shot. He mentioned this in one of his YouTube videos, but I couldn't find the specific video that he brought this up in. Basically, what Paul explained is the more uphill the shot is, the more you want to attack the disc from over to the right. So you don't want to, a lot of players would approach this shot from directly behind the disc and walk straight up at it, but Paul's going to walk up on this disc from the right side. And I've tried this myself, and when throwing up a hill, if you attack the disc from more over here or more down where Paul is, you're going to be able to control your angles a lot better. Just attacking this disc over from the right side as opposed to directly behind it, it's going to make it easier to throw the disc flat or on Anhyzer. So we're going to take a quick look at this, make sure we're not on too fast a speed here so you can really see what's going on. But this was when you watch videos on Paul's channel, they seem super casual, but you gain so many gems from it. And this is something that I got from, I couldn't remember what video it was, but take a look at the angle. He's barely even walking straight up through the disc. He's more walking from right to left towards the disc. So look at that one more time. You can see that he's attacking the disc from right to left here because he needs to throw this disc hard and flat. If he was approaching the disc from more so, straight this way, it would have been almost impossible to throw that disc flat because it's such an incline. But when you approach it from right to left here, you're able to throw your disc a lot more flat, a lot easier. And this is something, again, that I think everybody should be practicing. But these are the things that go overlooked. And these are the kinds of things that separates Paul. And that's why Paul is, was almost the 6-time world champ, but he's still the 5-time world champ for a reason. And that is because of the footwork, in my opinion, is what separates him from the rest of the field right now. And I don't think anyone's really even close to him as far as footwork goes. I think Paul is a lot more athletic than people give him credit for. But to have footwork like this, you need to be accountable to practicing each and every different bit of footwork that you have in your arsenal. And then you also need to upkeep them. So if he's not using these things in his game, he's going to lose them. So I know Paul has continued to practice all these things, and it's not something that people talk about. But I think this is currently the thing that separates Paul more than any other aspect of the game. And there's even a few other different forms and footworks that Paul will use to attack the course. But those are the 4 that I'm most impressed with, and the 4 that when I see that, I identify, that's different from something that most people do. These are the 4 things that I really like that Paul does. Leave in the comments down below, which one is your favorite? Which one do you want to implement in your game? I'm going to try and get that chest forward, eyes forward type of throw down where I can really hit those shorter 200 to 300 foot gaps with a lot more consistency. So that's the one I'm going to continue practicing. Comment below which one are you going to practice. You're watching Iceberg TV, and take care.